80s. I am your host, Jason Gross, and for this show, we are giving you a special extended episode, which we will tell you about in a few minutes. But first, I'm very proud to welcome back to the podcast a guest who has ranked movies with me for the last couple years, Mr. Chad E. Young of Horror Movie BBQ.com. How are you, Chad? Chad, are you there?
I'm doing great. For the ones that can't see me right now, I'm playing with a little Batman figure. I'm doing great, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing fine. A little precursor, maybe, to our lists
Well,
tonight.
perhaps, maybe.
We are we're bringing you an extended edition of Rankum because looking at the movies for 1989, I just found it impossible to pick five. And there's just so many. I mean, my initial list, I think I picked like 28. I don't know about
Believe
you,
that.
but I decided, let's just do 10. We'll do 10
Yeah.
tonight, and we'll have 18 in our honorable mentions.
Oh my god. And I'm sure that there's going to be plenty like overlapping because, like you said, there's just so many that are here. And how do you just pick because I think originally we were talking about five. How do you just
Yeah, no.
cut it down to five?
Yeah, and really, my top 10, there's some that I could move up and down the list at any given point, just depending on what mood I'm in
Sure.
and the last time that I've seen them, because I've seen most of these many, many, many times. And I was just trying to remember, is there a year that can compare to 1989? And I really haven't gone back and, we're gonna probably come back around to 1980 next year
Mm-hmm.
and start running through the decade that way. But
Sure.
wow, I don't know of a year that has this many movies that are just like in my favorites.
Yeah. So I've had this discussion with a couple friends, and there are a lot of people that consider 1984 to be the greatest year
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to movies, and I'm not telling them they're wrong, but for me, like you just said, as far as favorite movies, 1989 gets it across the
Yeah.
board, you
Yeah.
know. And
Uh,
I'll get into that when we start getting
sure.
into it, but I mean just the caliber of movies that came out, and you know the the way these movies look, the soundtrack. Oh, there's so much about these
Yeah.
movies that are just tremendous.
Yeah. They made a larger impact than just at the box office, even though the
Yes.
box office was huge.
Oh
And
yeah.
a lot of them extended to beyond that. And that's probably the reasons why I whittled them down to the 10 because of what other impacts they had on me as well. But yeah, like you
Right.
said, we'll get into that in a little bit. But first, we like to give a little context, and we had a lot of fun last time going through. We're going to go through the top 10 at the box office to just so you guys know what the overall top movies were there. And then we'll go through some of the award winners at the Oscars and, of course, the Razzies, which we love to talk about. So let's just go through the top 10 of 1989. Coming at number 10 was Dead Poets Society at 95 million. I think it's funny just looking at these figures and how pretty every big budget movie nowadays, their budget is higher than what they grossed at the box office this year. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
pretty
But
much.
anyway, great movie, Robin Williams. Number 9 was Parenthood. That's Steve Martin. That was just over 100 million. Number 8, Driving Miss Daisy,
Wow,
106.
that's 89.
Yep, that was a pretty big year. We'll get to that
Yeah.
in the awards because yeah, that
Oh
took
yeah.
home a lot of awards actually in 1990, which was
Hmm.
all the 89 movies. Number 7, Ghostbusters 2 at 112. I kind of thought that was going to be higher.
Honestly,
And go ahead.
yeah. I mean, but uh, we'll get into it later.
Okay.
But yeah, it surprises me that it's even on that list. I got to be 100% honest with you.
Well, yeah, we'll get into it. Number 6, Back to the Future Part 2, 118 million. Then your top 5, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids at 130. Look Who's Talking, 140. Then we've got Lethal Weapon 2. There's a lot of sequels this year as well that were in the top. 147. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade at number 2 with 197. And then the overall winner for 1989 was, of course, Batman at 251 million.
Yep, still the champ.
That's and we'll obviously get into that too. But top 10 for 89, the Academy Awards for this year, which obviously I'm looking at the 1990 Academy Awards. Driving Miss Daisy took home Best Picture. I have seen that movie like once, and I was like, okay, but I don't know if it was just the age I was at or whatever. I don't know. Have you watched Driving Miss Daisy?
So I feel like I saw it as a kid, and it was probably one of those movies my mom rented, one Sunday afternoon. I mean, obviously it's not, my favorite movie in the world, but I mean, obviously, I do remember, Morgan Freeman and how great he was, and was it Jessica Tandy? I think
that's correct. Yep.
As Miss Daisy. Oh my gosh, why do I remember that? I don't remember my mom's birthday, but I remember that Jessica Tandy Driving Miss Daisy. Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, she won the Best Actress that year.
I believe that.
The Best Actor, and this Daniel Day-Lewis is like Glenn Close, the male Glenn Close. He could, they could film a documentary of him farting, and he would be nominated for,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what it is, but he won that year for a movie called My Left Foot. I looked it up. I had never heard of it before, but it was about a paraplegic that could only use his feet and was like doing paintings and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, he won.
It definitely sounds like an Academy, Award winner.
Right. Best Director Oliver Stone, Born on the 4th of July. I was trying to remember if I've seen that, but I don't think I have.
What you meant to say was Tim Burton for Batman, right?
I'm sorry. I had wrote that down, then I penciled in, Tim Burton. Best Supporting Actor, Denzel Washington in Glory. I have seen that with Matthew Broderick.
I feel like I saw that.
That's a pretty good movie.
My family was always into war films because my dad was a veteran. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of Glory, what was the other one? Platoon, for some reason, was kind of popular in my household, which is very strange. My brother loved Platoon, so those kind of movies, we would see. So no, it definitely deserves it.
A few more. Brenda Fricker was the Best Supporting Actress. She played alongside Daniel Day-Lewis in My Left Foot. Best Original Song, Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. I can see that winning. Yeah. I'm not sure what the other nominees were. I didn't look those up, but...
Was Bobby Brown nominated for Ghostbusters too?
I don't believe so.
Well, then...
I could be wrong. Yeah,
everything else.
What in the world do they know? Best Visual Effects, The Abyss. Have you seen The Abyss?
I got to be honest. That's one movie that just kind of always fell by my wayside. I never really saw it.
I think maybe I watched it once on cable or something. It was one I've never remember going out and renting or really sitting down to watch.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough, though, I just picked up, there's a 2-part comic book adaptation of the movie, and I picked up the first book just on a whim. So I might have to go back and revisit it just to see what it's like.
Wow.
And see if it holds up. All right, let's get on. It's, gosh, can't remember.
I feel like it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, let's get on to the Razzies.
Oh dear.
Worst Picture, Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Wait, what? That's the worst movie of 1989?
Yeah, according to the Raspberries, yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay, all right.
And the worst actor went to William Shatner in The Final Frontier.
Well, I mean,
Now, I got to say, I am not the hugest Star Trek fan. I barely call myself a fan, but
right.
when I have watched Star Trek, it's mainly been the movies. And I don't know. I've never really sat through a Star Trek movie and been totally turned off from it
Mhm.
that I would put it up for a worst picture. And Star Trek fans might be screaming at me, "This is the worst one of the bunch. What are you talking about?" I don't haven't watched the films
Right.
recently enough to critique this one in the series, but I don't know.
Is this the one with the whales, or they're like, or is this the one where they're like looking for God or whatever?
I cannot remember. Cannot
I,
remember.
it's Star Trek 5.
Yeah.
My
The
goodness.
Final Frontier. Worst actress went to Heather Locklear in Return of the Swamp Thing.
That's a great movie, by the way. So screw that.
Uh, Worst supporting actor Christopher Atkins in Listen to Me. Now, Christopher Atkins,
Okay.
I had to click on him. He is the little blonde, curly-haired guy that was in The Blue Lagoon with
Mm-hmm.
Brooke Shields,
Mm-hmm.
which coincidentally is the worst supporting actress of 1989 for Speed Zone, which is like Cannonball Run 3. So I thought it was funny that they both got the award for
Oh, I bet.
worst supporting actor.
I'm sure that gets brought up when whenever they start hanging out.
Worst director, they are going after Kirk here. William
Oh
Shatner
dear.
in The Final Frontier.
Oh my gosh.
And then this one might be a personal shot at you, Chad, and I
Is it No Holds
apologize.
Barred?
The worst original song, "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter" from A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 by Bruce Dickinson. Not the Bruce Dickinson,
Right.
but
The
the
Bruce.
the lead singer of Iron Maiden. Yes.
Hmm.
Thoughts on that?
You know, I'm a big fan of Iron Maiden. Not their best song. I'll let them have that. That's all I'll say. I'll let them have that. It's not their best one.
Well, I thought it was funny too. They also nominated Kool Moe Dee from that same soundtrack.
Wait a minute, time out. Wait. Was that Jack the Return of Jack the Ripper?
Let's Go is the name
Let's
of the song.
go. Thank you. Okay. That one I would actually argue because that was a pretty, I gotta say, out of all the Nightmare on Elm Street soundtracks, that one's actually my favorite. So
Wow.
the Razzies can go. I agree with everything the Razzies has said so far, but now that you screw off.
All right.
That's okay.
Well, that's all the awards that I've got for 89. Just a reminder out there for everybody, our ground rules. You know, these are lists that we're going to come up with tonight. These are our personal favorites.
Mhm.
These aren't anything that we think should be number one. You know, have to be on the list because it was, you know, at the top of the box office, which might be the case in our list tonight. But
Sure.
we are owning these lists as our personal favorites, the ones we've seen the most and cherished the most.
Mhm.
That's it. And we haven't had many crossover at this point on our list, Chad, which has been great.
Mhm.
I have a feeling we're going to tonight. So what we'll do is we'll pass on like commenting on the movie until it appears on our list. So in case I put, Batman at number 8 and you have it at number 3, we'll just have you wait to comment on as it comes on your list. And so we can, we're not like covering the same ground twice, basically.
Oh, I like that.
So,
okay.
But you are the guest, so I'm giving you the floor first. What is your number 10 pick for 1989?
Have you ever heard of a guy named Freddy Krueger?
I have, I think.
Okay. Of course, the guy that plays him.
Is it?
Yes, Main Street. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bad Dream on Main Street, essentially, is the movie. The man who plays him, Robert Englund, who is obviously, every horror fan's favorite person in the world. He actually decided that he was going to try and direct a movie, and he gave it a shot, and he gave us a movie about a killer hotline. a 976 number, and he gave us 976 Evil. Have you ever seen this?
Have not. Nope.
Oh, Jason. Oh, Jason.
This
Honestly,
was the peak of the hotlines that you could call, so that makes sense at least.
And it's a pretty clever idea. It's like they took the kid from Fright Night. Oh, I can't remember. I'm not a big fan of that movie, so it's bothering me that I can't think of it. Stephen Jeffries, and he plays a kid that is picked on and bullied, and this hotline that he calls gives him like satanic powers. It's like every bad idea for a music video came to life, and Robert Englund just said, "Hey, let's turn it into a movie."
Now, is this the one where Freddy comes out of the TV?
Oh no, Freddy's not in it.
Oh, he's not?
No,
at all.
Robert directed this. He's not in it. He doesn't appear in it. The only thing that you see his name is the directing credit.
So they made a Nightmare on Elm Street without Freddy.
No. It's not a Nightmare on Elm Street movie at all.
Oh, okay.
It's an original concept by Robert Englund. It's just 976 Evil.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood you. I thought you were plugging in the Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I probably kind of started it off. But Jason, this movie is so ridiculously 80s, from the music, the imagery, the idea of a hotline. This movie is one of those movies that I used to rent on video a whole heck of a lot. And then I got it on DVD. Then I got it on, I just picked up the Blu-ray not too long ago. And it's so corny, and a lot of people don't like it. But it's a video store classic for me, because it just sums everything up about how much fun you can have with a horror movie, and how ridiculous it can get. But the gimmick is pretty cool of a hotline giving you satanic powers. I feel like if they were to do that now, they'd probably do it with like social media or something. But it's fun. It's fun. It's a corny horror movie, but it's so much fun.
Satan friended me. Yeah.
Yeah, they could probably do that. I mean, you and me probably wouldn't accept the friend request, but I'm
well, they can do God friended me. They can do
yeah, sure,
the devil. Why not? All right, we'll move on to my number 10 pick. Easily my favorite baseball movie, possibly the best, my favorite sports movie in general. And it was close because there's two great baseball movies in '89. One, and I only picked one for my list, so I went with Field of Dreams.
Oh wow,
Kevin Costner. I just remember anytime it was on cable, I was just sucked in, and I had to watch. And it's just, I don't know, it's not like it's more of a drama. It's kind of slow at some points, you would say. But I don't know what it is. It was just a fun little kind of ghost story being told, and very well filmed. The actors, the whole cast was great. James Earl Jones, Ray Liotta, even how the person they picked for his dad. I don't know. They just all seem to kind of fit. Just down to little Karen, the girl, that falls off the bleachers with the hot dog in her mouth. I don't know. I just liked it, and the fact that it's a ghost story. It's on my bucket list. I'm going to go to Iowa someday and walk through that freaking corn. If I can, I will, if it still exists.
I've got to imagine it does.
Now they were out there for the, I think, 25th anniversary. I remember seeing a story, and Kevin Costner was out there playing catch with his son. Oh, so wow. I'm pretty sure it still exists, and I'm gonna have to visit it someday. But it's such a great movie, and I just every time, like I said, every time it's on, I had to put it on. And when baseball season starts coming around, which is just about that time, I start putting on those baseball movies. I've got to watch it first. So, what's your thoughts on Field of Dreams?
I got to be honest. I saw it once when I was a kid. It's again like Miss Daisy. I feel like I saw it. Maybe it was even later, in syndication or something.
Mm.
But I do remember seeing it, and I thought it was good. Just positive movie. It was a pretty good drama. I'll definitely give you that. But I don't really have a lot to say. Yeah, it's a good movie though. Great movie.
Didn't have Willie Mays Hayes in it, right?
You knew where I was expecting that. Yes, I was expecting that or Bull Durham.
All right, we'll leave it at that. What's your number 9 pick?
All right, my number 9. I've got a little list here. My number 9 is a pretty controversial one, and Corey Chapman, our buddy from the Chap Report, and Pax and Holly, they're not the biggest fans of this pick. It's Karate Kid Part 3.
Yes.
My favorite of the Karate Kid sequels, just because when I was a kid, and Karate Kid was huge in my household. I dressed like Daniel for one of my early Halloweens. There's a picture of me floating around somewhere, but I love this movie because it's so ridiculous, and Terry Silver is just such a ham. Oh my gosh, I love it, and I love that they continued the story of the first one, and they briefly touched on it, continuing it in the second one. I wasn't as big a fan as the second of the second movie. This one, with the exception of like the bonsai tree scene on the side of the mountain, I love this movie. It's just, I feel like it's a little bit more entertaining than the second one, because the second one is a little bit more emotional and a little bit more dramatic, whereas this one just a little bit more sillier.
Yeah. Now listen to me. If Corey and Pax ever meet you in a dark alley, I have got your back 100% on this one.
Excellent.
Because I like this one way, way, way more than the second one as well. I remember watching this in the theater. I've watched several of these in the theater tonight on the list. It was one of the first ones out on my list. And I loved it too. I loved it that they brought back Kreese. And I mean, it was, so what, they think it's like too cheesy for Karate Kid or something? Is that the criticism of it?
I think that was Corey's argument. I know that Pax kind of I know that he kind of acknowledges how cheesy and silly it is.
What are you going to rely on that crane crap? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
There's so many great lines in the movie.
There's a lot of lines that I don't think you can repeat.
I mean, I don't know. I liked it. You kind of feel like as a kid you're watching this and you kind of feel Daniel's pain when he's putting him through this torture of just bloody knuckles. Mr. Miyagi has that, healing. He's got the healing touch and the powder, the little whatever he makes, to make Daniel feel better the next day. And he's soaking his, hands and elbows and legs, and he should have just, poured this in a hot tub somewhere and had Daniel soak, for 12 hours. But, even past all that, as a kid, I saw no flaws with this movie as a kid. And I loved it way more than the second one. And I was a huge Karate Kid fan. So I got your back on this one 100%, Chad.
They just released a 2-pack on Blu-ray of this and the movie that followed it that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I agree. And the one beyond that. Yeah.
You know what? I'm just going to say this. I never saw the remake. I truly can't really comment on it.
It is one that I will never watch. Just put it that way.
Fair.
Will not watch that remake. All right, let's keep moving here. Number 9 for me. This was one that I saw probably in my high school years, early 90s first, and I believe my buddy Wyatt recorded it off of HBO because it was definitely not edited. And it was really my true introduction, probably my introduction to Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. That is See No Evil, Hear No Evil. I can't tell you how many times we watched this movie, dude. We watched it so many times. We still throw lines at each other today. And again, most of which I cannot repeat on this show since it's a family-friendly show.
Mm-hmm.
But, Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder at their best, Richard is blind, Gene is deaf, and there's all of this little story they put together. Kevin Spacey is part of it. Kevin
Spacey's in that?
Yes, he plays this English man that's part of the bad guys. And Joan Severance. Holy cow, Joan Severance. I'm just gonna have to stop there. Yep. But I love this movie so much as a high schooler. And it was just fun, and I wasn't used to that much cussing and everything that they got away with in the movies. I just didn't watch a lot of R-rated stuff. Mm-hmm. I did a couple movies. I think I've said on the show before, my two first R-rated movies were Major League and Predator. And I saw them in probably 1989, which I was only 13 years old. So Predator scared the crap out of me, and Major League opened my eyes wide. And this movie did a little bit wider, but there's just so much, fun little antics in this movie. It is a bit ridiculous at times, but when they're out driving that cop car and trying to tell them which way to go, and there's just so much just classic Wilder Pryor moments in that movie, and it's my favorite by far of. I think they did three or four movies together.
Blazing Saddles. They did. Is it Blue Streak, Silver Streak, something like that?
Silver Streak.
Was that the train?
Pryor wasn't in. I don't think he was in Blazing Saddles.
No. Oh my gosh. No, that was Cleavon Little. Oh my gosh. Oh,
yeah, I couldn't name the other ones right now, but anyway, have you seen the movie? Have you seen See No Evil?
I've seen parts of it. I've seen parts of it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I could watch it now and still tears would be rolling by the time I was done with it. So great.
Was there a scene where they're getting interrogated and someone's yelling at Gene Wilder?
Yeah.
Or no, someone's yelling.
The scene is the captain is asking there's a murder that takes place and they're both there. So Pryor heard it and Wilder seen it, and they're trying to put it all together. And the captain says, "Was there a woman present?" And Richard Pryor's like, "I smelled a woman, but I didn't see a woman." And then he gets so ticked off, and then he just yells at Gene Wilder, "Was there a woman present?" And he's like, "Fuzzy Wuzzy was a woman," He totally misinterprets, trying to read his lips, And that whole scene where they're taken to jail and they're trying to take their picture. Hey, face front. And Wilder looks forward for them to take the picture, and then he looks over and says something, take the picture. Of course they miss it. No, stop, face front. Well, she make up her mind, and it goes back and forth, and the lady taking the picture just finally throws out a bunch of obscenities, and it's hilarious. Anyway, I could go into that movie. I could do a whole podcast on that movie, but it was so great.
I feel like if they were to do that today, that would be maybe a Kevin Hart and The Rock.
Yeah, Kevin Hart and Paul Rudd or something. I don't know, something like that.
Gosh, yes. Now I want that to happen.
All right, what's your number 8? Let's keep moving.
Okay, number 8. Were you a fan of Weird Al?
Yes.
Okay. I don't really know how to set this one up, but UHF is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen in my entire life, because there's really no purpose.
No point, no plot,
Oh,
no anything really, right?
it's just Weird Al. It's a Weird Al movie. Like, I don't know how if someone, 30 years later and I still can't explain this movie. I have nothing. I'm just like, if you like Weird Al, you're gonna like this movie. Just please believe me. And this movie is, I mean, obviously it does have a plot. It's about, Weird Al becomes the station manager of a failing UHF station, and Kevin McCarthy runs the big, station downtown, and it turns into a war. And they have to raise money to save the UHF station, so they do a bunch of crazy, TV shows, and they do a Weird Al music video in the middle of the movie when he falls asleep, and it's like, this movie is just absolutely crazy. And then you look at the cast. It had Kevin, like I said, Kevin McCarthy, who's known for a lot of, he was Invasion of the Body Snatchers in the 1950s, and he did a lot of horror movies and a lot of B movies. Fran Drescher was in it. I believe that's one of her first movies. I could be wrong. No. I'm sorry. She was in
Cadillac Man.
Okay, Cadillac Man.
That was 80. That was probably like 86.
Yeah. Okay, then I'm far. I was gonna say she was in Hollywood Nights with Tony Danza and Robert Wool. I don't think she was in that though.
I haven't seen that one.
I'll watch anything Robert Wool's in. But this movie is just so insane, and I got to tell you, there's a tiny, tiny, tiny bit that gets me every time, because they have a lot of big, memorable gags. But there's a scene. Michael Richards plays the janitor, and the rival station kidnaps him. And a bunch of ninjas save him and bring him back on an army jeep, and the music that they're playing as they turn the corner just kills me every time. I swear, it's just it's like the corniest victory music you'll ever hear in your life. This whole movie is just one, what the heck was that moment after another. Oh my gosh. What are your thoughts on it?
It's literally been probably, I don't know, 15 years since I watched it. And I remember renting it. I remember it being ridiculous. And I was a fan of Weird Al. I didn't have a lot of his albums. I did have a couple as a kid. And he was, I don't know, he was kind of the cool, kid music. All my friends seem to like him, as you're a kid. And that kind of grew out of me, I guess, a little bit as I got older. So I haven't gone back and watched it in years. The only thing I can really remember vividly is him as Rambo. Just those crazy things that they came up with was great. But that one sticks out in my mind to me.
Oh my gosh. But, so yeah, that's such a good one. And of course they did Conan the Librarian.
Yeah. Yeah.
My friends and I still quote to this very day.
That's a good pick.
I love that movie.
All right, good pick. Number 8. Got to get John Candy on this list. Number 8 is Uncle Buck.
Yes.
Uncle Buck. That was a staple as far as renting goes for me in the 90s. I rented that all the time. I don't remember watching it earlier on or even in the theater, but I do remember renting that one a lot. So much to love about that one. So many great scenes, like classic John Candy scenes. When he's cooking them breakfast with the snow shovel with the pancakes. When he's looking for the daughter, and he's at the party, they're playing, Bust a Move by Young MC, and just his, going through that party, and all the little gags, the car that backfires, for a mile away. The clown that comes to the birthday party.
Gosh.
Oh my gosh, I love that scene. You get in your mouse and you get out of here. How can you say that with a straight face? And he punches the thing. When he punches him, it makes that noise,
Oh my gosh.
Love that scene.
Doesn't he like fall to the ground and like pop back up?
He might. It might have been like some kind of spring sound effect too or something. The people at the bowling alley, the dude that flips the toothpick that has the like knot in his lip, from doing that. I don't know. I just love it. It's got, again, there's several of these comedies with John Candy where there is a true serious moment. And I don't know. Those type of moments like kind of suck you in because you're laughing so much. And then you see him when he's going through like the wedding album and his picture is folded over in their wedding album. And he kind of gets the reality kind of sets in. And, oh man, I don't know. There's such a great like turn in this movie from, the daughter hating him and then kind of coming back around at the end after he goes after her. But gosh, I love Uncle Buck. Love Uncle Buck. Your thoughts?
I don't know what else I can say about that movie. Oh my gosh, the lines in that movie are incredible. I mean, the one that I always remember is when he's explaining to the one boy, he's like, "Do you know what a hatchet is?" And he's like, "Isn't it like a knife?" And he's like, "Yes, it is like a knife. It is like a knife." Very good. And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I like to keep mine razor sharp. Would you like me to show you? Here it is. Here it is. He's like holding up and it's like shining in the moonlight,
Oh my gosh. And the other scene that I always remember is the little girl in obviously I'll watch my language here, but when she's like doing show and tell or something, and she says something like, "We have to wash our clothes in the microwave or the dishwasher."
Dishwasher, yeah.
Yeah, and the teacher says why. She's like, because wasn't it like the machine was blank broken? And then he just screams blasphemer or whatever.
Yeah.
Here's a quarter. Go downtown, get a rat.
Oh my, that scene! Oh my gosh! For years, that was like the most hilarious scene in any movie to me. The whole moly, And when he's like he goes to the school, and just that little scene where he goes to the bathroom and he's got to lean down in the little urinal to go to the bathroom, and he's smoking a cigar. There's no smoking in here. Oh my gosh, there's just so many good things in that movie. Jackie is the neighbor, that comes over, surprises him.
That's right, she is.
And his Shanice, his love interest is the same girl from Field of Dreams. Can't remember her name.
Not Joan Sever.
The red-haired lady. Anyway, it'll come to me in a minute. But oh my gosh, yeah, just a fun movie, and such a great journey for a comedy. So, all right, let's get on to number 7.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get a little prop here. So
go for it.
And I just tripped over a bunch of crap. So I am so sorry for those who are watching and just going like, "What the heck is he doing?" Again, I'm really trying to watch my language here. Okay. So this is going to be another sequel. And, just a few years ago, we celebrated a very special day on the internet. And it was Back to the Future 2 Day.
Nice.
And I actually have a USA Today to commemorate Back to the Future Day. Back to the Future 2. is my favorite of the entire series. And, obviously I love that first one. That first movie is just tremendous. But, growing up, I always liked the sequels more. And, you're kind of going to see that that's a little trend going on. Back to the Future 2 was a little bit more futuristic. It had a great image of the future. Biff was the main villain, and it just, there was so much going on in that movie that I don't know how to explain it. I loved everything about that movie. Even if it didn't have Huey Lewis, which I think would have made the movie even better. But I know a lot of people that prefer the first one over the second. That's fine. But this one I always liked more. I loved the depiction, like I said, of Biff, being this crazed maniac millionaire. And then I always loved the way they made everything look so futuristic, like even down to the Pepsi Perfect bottle, yeah. Which on Back to the Future Day I drove myself absolutely insane trying to get, and I still can't get one. But I love that the 80s cafe. I love the the way they made the house look and the cars. Everything about this movie, it's more visual. It feels larger than the first one. Yep. And I'm sure that they didn't plan on making more, but I'm really glad they did.
Well, I'm going to get into it more later, but I'll tell you, Back to the Future 2 was probably the most anticipated movie for me in my childhood. Because, number one ends with the car flying off and to be continued. Uh-huh. And we waited 4 long years for it to happen. I'm so glad they shot like number 2 and number 3 like back to back. So they came out pretty quick. I thought that was a great plan.
That is a good idea.
Didn't, not at the time, but I had no idea. I was clueless. But oh my gosh, it was very, very highly anticipated for me, waiting for that to come out, and I was definitely not disappointed. We'll just put it that way until I get more into it. But oh my gosh, yeah, the whole just the thought of the future and the way they depicted it was great. And now it looks ridiculous, flying cars, and here we are at the past the point in the time that they go there. But
it's true.
They're still using fax machines, and But just think how fun that would have been in that room with Zemeckis and Bob Gale and all of them guys trying to come up with what is the future going to be like, in 25 years. What is it going to be like? And just imagine trying to come up with that stuff. And, obviously they got a few things right. A few things were wrong. But very wrong. At the time, I thought it was great. And it's just fun.
You know what the best part about this is? And I think I told this story on a previous episode where you and I were doing these. My mom, when the DVD came out, I know I've told this story so many times, but forget it. When the DVD came out in 2002, 2003, whatever, I got it. My mom and I sat back and watched it. And she grew up in the 50s, so she loved the first one, and she loved like seeing a lot of the imagery, and she's like, oh yeah, she had to explain what a hope chest was. I was like, what the hell is a hope chest? And she had to explain it, and then she explained like all the references. So we for 3 nights in a row we would watch the Back to the Future movies, and I love that we got to do that. When the second one rolled around, it had been years since I've seen the second one, but I'm watching it, and there's one scene where I'm laughing hysterically, and my mom's like, "Why are you laughing?" And I say, "Well, that's Michael J. Fox playing the daughter," and she's like, "Oh, Chad, that's not Michael J. Fox." And I'm like, I'm looking at her, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you don't even realize what you just said, do you?"
Wow.
Oh gosh, it was just.
Yeah. That got a bit much to me. If there's one thing that I'd go back and say cool back on was how many different characters he had to play. the son, the daughter, the grandfather, the Irish descendant, and
Oh, you know what? Let's put it out there. I don't think either of us are going to put it Back to the Future 3 on our 1990 list.
No,
No.
I would not. But anyway,
Yeah.
we'll get into my thoughts a little bit more as we can continue on. Number 7 for me. This was not anticipated as much as I've watched this movie. So I was well, it's a part of a series, and I didn't see the first one. I probably saw this one before I saw the first one in its like original unedited version. And it's Police Academy 6. Police Academy 6. I watched that thing so many times. I rented it so many times. It's my favorite of the entire series, even above the first one. And it's ridiculous and it's awesome. It's over the top, but yet it's PG, if that even makes sense. But my favorite characters were always Tackleberry, Jonesy, Captain Harris. They were hitting on all cylinders in this movie with their characters, and it was just a few of them in Hightower. It wasn't the whole crew. They weren't off saving the city. It was them against this gang, and I loved the gang was great. There's that huge twist at the end. If you haven't seen it, just go watch it. But the mayor, I loved the mayor. He's the mastermind at the end of the movie,
Of course.
Anyway, it's got that great scene with Jonesy. I got to see him this past year at our local Comic-Con.
Oh, wow.
He came and he performed and did all the sound effects. But this is the movie that has him performing as Jimi Hendrix in this little club. And that is, I just love that scene and love him doing Jimi Hendrix. If you ever watched Michael Winslow's stand-up, so great. Tackleberry at his very best. He's going up against this other guy that's like a sharpshooter, and they're in this warehouse and they're trying to one up each other. There's a cat that knocks a tin can off the side of this thing, and they both shoot it was called like something with 2 O's, and they shoot the center of the 2 O's in the can. And they're like, whoa. And the guy takes out, he shoots a pistol twice. He takes out an Uzi and makes a smiley face. And then Tackleberry comes in with his M16 and makes have a nice day on the wall, when he shoots. Just stuff like that is just, I eat up so much in this movie. And there's so many great quotable lines, the criminals, and I don't know, I just love it. But yes, Police Academy 6, City Under Siege is my number 7 pick. Where are you at with the Police Academy movies, Chad?
Well, by the time I started growing up, the Police Academy movies were kind of, on the way out. For me, my main exposure to the Police Academy series was always the cartoon and the toys.
Really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I didn't see Police Academy, the first one, until I was probably like 16, maybe. Like I had watched the TV show. I had caught the TV show when they it was like done for like a season.
Yeah,
in like
TV series. Yeah.
Yeah, I caught that. But Police Academy was never really high on my list in terms of like comedies growing up, just because I feel like by the time I was getting older, the humor, especially in the early one, maybe even the sequel, was a little dated,
Yeah, and even this one is, I don't know, it's almost centered around like kid humor. They drive freaking Bigfoot through New York City at the end of the movie, and every kid is just screaming like, "Oh my gosh, I want to be in Bigfoot," just driving around crushing cars.
I'm writing this down because I do want to see it, just based off how silly it sounds.
It's so great, so great. If I were going to recommend any of them in the series, I'd be like, go watch number 6. I love number 6.
I'll
All
definitely
right,
give that a try.
let's keep going. What's your number
Okay.
6 on your list? We're going to be here a while. Oh, well.
Oh
Extended
boy.
edition, people. Extended
Extended
edition.
edition.
Number 6, baby.
So, how do I put this? I'm a pro wrestling fan, as so many people know me to be. Yeah, you already know where I'm going with this.
Yes.
And in 1989, we were blessed with No Holds Barred, starring Hulk Hogan and Zeus Tiny Lister. And if I could give you an explanation of how excited as a kid I was for this, it just wouldn't do it justice. As a kid, I did like Hulk Hogan, but I mean, I was a bigger Macho Man Randy Savage fan. And this movie is, look, Hulk Hogan's not a good actor. He's a good entertainer. He's a great talker. He's got, oh my gosh, the personality, the size of a planet. Not a very good actor, and he's very limited. This movie is all about him playing a character named Rip, who wrestles for the network or something, and a competing network run by Kurt Fuller wants to buy him out, but he's not willing to budge. So they get Zeus to take him down in a battle of the tough guys. And this movie, it's so amazingly bad, but it's, if you grew up in like the Hulkamania era, or you grew up in that time, this movie just, oh, you remember where you were when you saw it first. You remember when they announced it, the trailer, you remember what a huge deal it is, and then you see it and you're just like, wow, that movie's terrible. But it's so entertainingly bad. It's just, everything about this movie's bad. Oh, but it's just so silly and fun to watch. It's very mindless. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, Joan Severance is in it, and holy cow. Holy cow, that woman was
Top of her game.
Yeah. Just knockout. But yeah, there's a lot of memorable lines in this movie, like, what's that smell? Dookie. And like the guy craps his pants, and like, who thought about a guy crapping his pants? And to pull the curtain back, I don't know if you've ever heard the story of how they got the ending of the movie. Oh, Jason, you there? All right, so Jason's frozen. I don't know if he's there, but I'm just going to keep talking because I'm assuming Jason can hear me. And if not, he's probably going to edit this out. Oh, there you are. You can hear me.
I could hear you the whole time, so I don't know.
Good,
Maybe it was just me.
Okay, no, then that's fine. So I don't know if you've heard how they got the ending to this movie.
I have not.
So the ending of the movie is, of course, Hulk Hogan defeating, Zeus, Tiny Lister, and he punches him, and like on the top of a balcony, and he falls through the middle of this ring. It's probably like maybe 10, 15, 20 feet away. And the story goes that Hulk Hogan came up with that ending because him and Vince McMahon locked themselves in a hotel for 48 hours to try and get this done. And this script, and gosh knows what else they came up with. But apparently Hulk Hogan was making a bowel movement when he came up with the ending of this movie. And that's straight from the Hulkster himself, which, let's be fair, that kind of makes sense somehow. That got posted last year, and I don't remember what website was the first one to run with that story, but
oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
Wow, that just tells a lot, I guess, about the movie. I remember watching this in the theater. I was a huge I was a huge wrestling fan back in the day as a kid. Yeah. And everything you said is 100% true. I mean, if you were watching wrestling, if you were in that era of Hulkamania, this movie was hype. And I watched it in the theater. That scene where he falls through the wrestling ring just blew my mind. I was like,
Oh yeah,
he went through the ring. How's that possible?
yeah.
That's the only thing I remember about the movie, dude. I don't think I've seen it since then.
Okay,
but
you have
but
to
back in
see
the
this movie.
day, like, oh my gosh, yes. And later when I would start watching more movies, my love for John Candy, Zeus is in oh gosh, with Eugene Levy. It just left me. Armed and Dangerous. He's in Armed and Dangerous. He plays the security guard that like chases them in a couple scenes.
Oh wow. I
He's
don't
like
think
this
I've ever seen that movie.
bodybuilder. Yeah, he's a bodybuilder. I can't remember. They're trying to get him information out of him, and then they're just Candy is tooling with him. He like picks up their car at one point as they're trying to get away. I'm gonna kill you, Dooley. I'm gonna kill you. He started running out, and I was like, "That's Zeus, man. That's freaking Zeus in this movie." But again, like I remember it being that impactful that I went to see it in the theater and that seeing him going through the wrestling ring. But I don't remember. I don't think I've ever watched it since then, dude.
Can I be honest? I don't know who came up with this idea. WWE had the balls to put it on Blu-ray, and I have the Blu-ray. It's one of the few Blu-rays that does not stay on my shelf for long because I'll end up watching it. And it also includes 2 matches okay.
Because Zeus went into the WWF, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah, and he was a part of two pay-per-views, and then when they, because the movie didn't stay that long in the theater, they put it on pay-per-view. They added a steel cage match between Randy Savage and Zeus against Hogan and Brutus Beefcake. So they included the match if you ordered the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Zeus at that time, like, you wouldn't, well, maybe if you got the right star to do that now, but you wouldn't really have a WWF produced movie and then they're going to take the actor and put him in the ring. Because Tiny Lister, he was not a wrestler. He wasn't even really an athlete.
Yeah, so he's more just like a bodybuilder, right?
Yeah. Oh, and he looked fantastic. He was menacing. To me, he scared the crap out of me as a kid.
Yeah.
But other than literally like just hitting himself in the chest and like screaming, he couldn't really do much with it.
Okay, I can just coming full circle here. I can see you going to see Batman: The Dark Knight and screaming Zeus at the top of your lungs during that scene where they're out in the boats, in the Dark Knight, yeah. And he's got the thing, he throws it out the window. I was like, that's Zeus, man, it's Zeus. He's returned. He's in a Batman movie.
Yeah. Had I seen it in the theater, because I actually said that because my friend, when the movie came out, got his hands on a DVD. I'm not proud of it, but he gave it to me and said, you need to watch this weekend. And that's actually what I said. I was like, wow, that's Zeus. Yes. There's a lot of things in that sentence that I'm just not proud of.
All right. Well, I'm not going to deny your pick there. It might be a little crazy, in 2019, but back in the day, it had the hype. No doubt about it.
Oh, it certainly did.
All right, number 6. I don't know how this is my number 6 movie. It should be way higher. There's just so many. It's just so hard, man. So hard. But I'm not the biggest horror movie person at all. You know that by just doing these few podcasts with me on movies. And this is more what I would call PG horror. Very vivid memory of watching it in the theater. The Burbs is my number 6 pick.
Oh my goodness. That is not what I expected you to go with, but that's a pretty good pick, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love The Burbs so much. Tom Hanks. it's just a fun movie. You know, Corey Feldman being Corey Feldman again, and you got Bruce Dern, the crazy, you know, soldier neighbor, and his hot wife, and Walter at the end of the street, and then the Klopex, you know, and all the antics that goes along with just, you know, trying to figure out who they are. So many great lines in that movie that I use. It's seemingly on a weekly basis. You know, somebody asked me if to do something, if I don't want to do it, I'd rather chew broken glass. I use that so much you don't even know. Rick Ducommun, he played Ray's friend in the movie.
See the one that passed away?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So great, so great. And again, like I said, I'm not the biggest horror movie fan, so this is like as much as I'm gonna watch and be able to enjoy. And there's still, like, you know, chainsaws coming through his house when he has that little dream sequence, and he wakes up to Mr. Rogers the next morning. You know, I always love that when he gets to Mr. Rogers and he's singing along with his orange juice. But yeah, just a fun movie, and you know, it's on that edge of horror without being horror. Yeah, if that even makes sense.
Absolutely.
What's your take on The Burbs?
You're not gonna like it. I think I saw this one way too late in life. I just saw it a couple years ago. I'm a big Joe Dante fan, but this one I don't know. I just didn't get into this one. But I have so many friends that, like you, they just adore this movie. So, like, even if I don't like it, I still respect it. You know?
Okay. All right. Well, that's fair enough. And yeah, me seeing it in the theater, you know, as a 13-year-old and just latching onto it is just a, you know, totally different experience than just seeing it a couple years ago. So that's very understandable.
Sure.
But oh my God, there's just so many great lines, and I just love it to death. I do have to watch it at Halloween, and when I see it, like moving from streaming to streaming service, Netflix has it now. I'll have to turn it on.
Right.
I don't know how many times I've seen it. It's probably at least 50. But I don't know. I just love it. Carrie Fisher, you know, I don't know. It's just one of those movies that has been with me since it came out in the theater.
I love it. All
right.
But, have you ever? There was, you know, because we just lost Dick Miller just a little while ago.
Yes.
Did you ever see the clip of Dick Miller yelling at Corey Feldman on set?
No.
Where it's like Corey, I guess they're preparing for a scene. I think it's Corey, Tom Hanks. It's someone else. I can't remember who the fourth guy or the third guy was, but Dick Miller's over here. Corey's like dancing and singing, and they're like trying to cut, you know, they're trying to start giving them cues. And Dick Miller says to Corey Feldman, this is all behind the scenes stuff. And he's just like, cut it out. We're trying to do some effing acting. It's just
wow. And he's in that movie for like a minute.
Who, Dick Miller?
Yeah, no, he's like the garbage man, I think, that comes in after the whole scene where he smashes the garbage at the end of the street when it's raining and they go through it the next morning. He's one of the garbage men that comes by.
Oh, okay.
So he was like in it for, you know, I don't know, a minute, has maybe a half a dozen lines, and he's like trying to get Corey Feldman to act. That's hilarious.
It's even better because it's just Corey Feldman being Corey Feldman on set. This angry old man is just getting tired of Corey Feldman, which I love. I love that idea.
That's great. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yes, I'll send it to you on Facebook.
Okay. All right, we're up to our top 5. We finally made it. What is your number 5?
You know, I really, because I have them all written down on my phone, and like as I look at it, I really feel like this one should be higher than it is, but it's still like it's top 5. It's
right.
Okay.
Right.
You and I grew up big fans of the first one. Again, sequels. But this one is by far my favorite of the Ghostbusters series. Or 2 or 3, whatever people consider this Ghostbuster universe. It's Ghostbusters 2. Now, this movie, when it was released, my main exposure to Ghostbusters, again, I was 6 in 1989. People, give me a break. My main exposure was the real Ghostbusters, the toys, the cartoon, all the crazy merchandising, and of course, Ecto Cooler. Oh, I'm doing it
Oh my
wrong.
gosh.
That's actually the re-release. I wish I had the original. But Ghostbusters 2 was very heavily inspired by the real Ghostbuster cartoon. It was a little sillier. It was a little bit more. It was more like a science fiction horror movie than the first one was. I always saw the first movie as more of a comedy than anything. It just had really good effects and it had a great script. This one was just more straight up fantasy. And that's the thing I always loved about this movie. It was mindless. It was fun. And a lot of people have given me crap over the years for liking this more than I do the first one. But the fact is, and I will take this point to my grave, this movie didn't need to hire someone to rip off Huey Lewis to make good music. So take that right in your face. I was about to curse. I love everything about this movie, man. I love the marketing that was going into it. Do you remember Did you have Hardee's in your area?
I did not have Hardee's in my area, so I missed all that.
Oh, you missed some of the greatest promotion ever. Oh, they had like slime. They had a Slimer Sundae, which was just the soft serve ice cream with green bubblegum syrup.
Oh wow!
I feel like my dad loved Hardee's and Roy Rogers more than he did like McDonald's and Burt and all that crap. And I want to say we had it. I can almost guarantee, because again, Ghostbusters was huge in my household. They also did like a kids meal. They have cups. I have a Ghostbusters cup around here somewhere. I was just looking at it, but no, I guess I don't. But they did a gigantic promotion for that. We got Ecto Cooler because of it. We got a lot of cool, fun stuff. And, this is an example of not just the movie having an effect on me, but everything surrounding it. And we're obviously going to get into that in a little while with something else. But, I always thought that this movie was much more entertaining than the first one. And whether it was the Statue of Liberty walking because of a Nintendo
so great
advantage. It's I think people kind of took this movie a little too seriously, and when you look at the climate of the time and what was popular in movies and the fact that this was inspired by a cartoon, a lot of it was. You can't really argue with me that this wasn't heavily influenced by the cartoon. It was just
what just came to mind. Just speaking of how it's just cartoon like. The two scenes that are some of my favorites in each of the movies is when the ghosts kind of come out or come to life. When they blow out the top of the fire station in the first movie and they start appearing in taxi cabs and stuff. And Slimer, we see Slimer. I think he's at the hot dog stand in that one, or maybe that was number 2.
No, I think that. No, they could have. Yeah, I think that is part 2.
And then the slime comes out in this one, and everybody's acting all angry. The freaking Titanic comes in. Better late than never, says Cheech.
So insane. That's right. I forgot Cheech was cameo.
Yeah, and I love those and even just Vigo. And
Vigo.
Gozer scared the crap out of me as a kid. A lot of the ghosts did. The one at the library when she gets all crazy.
Yes.
That I
Yes.
could not watch that scene for years because I was so scared of that.
Right.
And then, Zool and just all looking all crazy and crazy hot at the same time. But Vigo, oh, the painting. Holy
Oh my
cow,
gosh.
that scared the crap out. When they show it from the side and the head
Mhm.
actually comes out of the painting, is like
Yes.
looking around.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
giving that little smile to Dana. I was so freaking scared as a kid. And even at the end, when he gets all crazy,
Yes.
when he's back in the painting, and then when he pops out and he's like messing with the baby,
Mhm.
that's just so crazy. And it does remind me a lot more of the real Ghostbusters kind of stories than
Yeah.
the first one,
Oh
obviously.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah.
I can definitely see that point where it matches more up with the cartoon, just with the villain and everything. Um, yeah, no doubt.
I kid you not. Vigo's little what would you describe him as? Is like curator? I don't know what the word would be, but Peter McNichol.
Amandi Lord.
Yes, he was essentially not Balky, and I don't think he gets enough credit for being such a big part of that movie because he did a great performance.
Oh,
As
dude,
silly as it was, he did such a good job.
the other scene that scared the living crap out of me was when he comes on the to get the baby when he's pushing the
Yes,
carriage.
yes.
Oh my,
Hmm.
that freaked me out so much. Um,
Yeah.
oh,
No,
it still kind of creeps me out.
that scene when I was a kid creeped me out so. And again, I was 6, so it was just frightening.
A
Oh
couple
my
years
goodness.
ago, I was taking the boys to school, and I saw a woman pushing a carriage that I thought was straight out of Ghostbusters 2. And the kid inside was sitting up like Oscar and bald as
No.
can be. And I'm like, oh my, she's pushing Oscar. And that carriage is going to take off into the road in just a minute. I wanted to stop and like get a picture and put it up on Facebook or something just
Oh,
to
that would
prove.
have.
Oh my God, it was so creepy.
Oh,
Just one day I'm just driving. I'm like, what?
holy cow. Did you just like lock the doors and say, all right, guys, you got to stay in here for like the next 20 minutes?
I was like, yeah, like something bad's gonna happen. Oh my
You know
God.
what? I also got to say this. That obviously at that point we had a lot more special effects that you could play with and CGI. The Scolari brothers in the courtroom scene
Yeah,
are my favorite.
that was
Other
great.
than my favorite designs of a ghost that isn't Slimer or Stay Puft. Those are my favorite designs. I love them in the electric chair and just
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yes, I love this movie.
I'm not finished.
I
The
love
judge.
Judge.
Oh my gosh.
Such a good movie, and
Yeah,
the
so
soundtrack
great.
is amazing too.
Yeah, I'll get to it a little bit more. It's a little bit higher on my list,
Cool.
but yeah, uh, cannot include it in a top five. It's just impossible for 1989, in my opinion.
Oh yeah,
Um, all right, number five for me is my favorite in the Indiana Jones series, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
really?
Yeah,
That's your favorite? I love it.
I'm
Fantastic.
pretty sure I saw it in the theater. I think with my dad.
Hmm.
I didn't go to the movies a lot with him, but for some reason I can remember the ones that I went to him with. But talk about a scene that just scared the living crap out of me is the end when they're doing the Grail, drinking out of the Grail. You have chosen
Oh,
unwisely, and he just turns to dust. That scene just creeped me out. But I don't know. It's just my favorite. I think a lot of it has to do with Sean Connery, and of course, they're back with the Nazis, and
hmm.
it had a lot of I don't know feeling, I guess, from the first one that you didn't get a lot of in the second one. And
Hmm.
I'm not dissing the second one because when I do go back and watch them, when I watch the trilogy, I watch them, all in order, and I love number two as well. But
Was that Temple of Doom?
Yeah,
Was that?
Temple of Doom.
Okay.
So
Okay.
number 3, the Last Crusade. It was just so much fun. I love all the adventure and getting to, just the. I don't know if it's just the religious artifacts that kind of appealed to me more going after than a couple
Mhm.
stones or aliens. um, but it was great. Great cast, and uh, I really don't know what to say about it other than I wish it would have been the last one. You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah.
ride off in the sunset at the end, and now they've done 4. They're talking about doing a 5th one, and I'm like, recast it. Let Indiana
Yes.
be James Bond. Okay,
Yes.
recast him
I
and let's
agree.
do
I
something
agree.
else because I didn't get a lot into the Young Adventures or the Young Indiana Jones Adventures Chronicles, I think it was.
Yes.
I really need to do that a lot more. I do have the full collection, and I usually watch the movies, and I don't watch the TV show a whole lot. But um, yeah, I the third one I just thought was really great, and I watched the first one pretty early in the years of VHS, probably like the mid
Oh,
'80s, like
mhm.
one of the first ones I actually saw on VHS, and that was scary in its own right. The whole face melting thing.
Oh
But
yeah.
um, Last Crusade, I don't know. It's just my favorite out of the series. What do you say about Indiana Jones?
Again, it was huge in my household. My mom, my dad, my brother, they all loved Indiana Jones. I was a fan of Indiana Jones, and I think that the movies were just tremendous action movies. Um, I gotta be honest, I don't really think I know that, the idea of Sean Connery and Harrison Ford in the same movie was a very big deal, but or at least in my household and obviously elsewhere too. But I don't really remember seeing the movie as much as I do, everybody talking about it. And
Hmm.
in fact, that year at the book fair when I was in kindergarten, I only got 2 books, and one of them was a Ghostbusters 2 like storybook, and the other one was a Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So I definitely remember, realizing what a pretty big deal it was, but I don't think I've gone back and watched it.
Yeah.
You know.
This year, I seem to remember this and some of the other ones that we've talked about uh, being released at McDonald's on
Yes.
VHS.
Yes. Yes.
I think this was
Mhm.
one of them, and it was just
Yes.
it was weird. It's weird to think about being able to buy movies at McDonald's, but you could back then.
Yeah. I
And
had a Wayne's World VHS that you got from McDonald's. I think
really,
I also had Adam's Family stands out as being another one that they
hmm,
released because I think they had their own special covers because it had the McDonald's logo, and I think that they had like a intro from like Magic Johnson or something. Because I guess that some of the proceeds went to like Magic Johnson's AIDS Foundation or something.
hmm.
That stands out. But yeah, no, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade was definitely one of them.
All right. Well, let's go on to our number 4 picks. What you got?
Okay. So this next one is going to be, for me, Nightmare on Elm Street 5, which is also the movie that introduced me to Freddy Krueger as a kid. And to no one's shock, this is a movie that didn't really do too well because it was rushed so heavily that they didn't really have time to mature the idea that Freddy Krueger's nemesis from the previous movie, Alice, was having a baby, and Freddy Krueger was trying to get inside of Alice to get control of the baby. And as I say that, I kind of realize why people hate it. No, um, it's 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 the most insane of the Elm Street series. I think it's I don't think that it's really been given. I'm biased because I love it so much, but I think that there's so much, positives coming out of this movie. There's great death scenes. Some of my favorite characters. There's a character in there that's like the awkward, goofy comic book fan, and I've always seen him as like my spirit animal. There's a lot of fun lines. I love jokey Freddy Krueger. I know a lot of people don't like, once Freddy started becoming that cartoon character, kind of like serial salesman, but I do. But yeah, this was a movie that has really become a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street fans' least favorite, but it's my favorite because if I hadn't seen it at like age 7 or 8, whatever, whenever I saw it, I probably wouldn't. I wouldn't really be a full-fledged horror fan the way I am now.
Makes sense. I have not seen it. Sorry.
Eh. According to the internet, you're probably better off. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. All right, number 4 for me is Ghostbusters 2. Pretty sure I saw it in the theater. I'm like 99% sure I saw it in the theater. From what we all talked about, those moments, the Nintendo controller in the Statue of Liberty, I loved that. I mean, in a way, there was a lot of the first movie in this one with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and then you get the Statue of Liberty, which is actually, a good character. But I think I quote Ghostbusters 2 more than I quote the first one. And the first one, I'm pretty sure was one of the earliest ones I saw in the movie theater. But it's weird because, like, I talked about how eager I was to see Back to the Future 2. Back to the Ghostbusters 1, there was no real continuation, and we got the cartoon series before we got a second movie. And I don't know the whole history in between of the 5 years it took to put another one out, but I don't remember it being high on my radar at the time. But when it came out, I was huge into Ghostbusters the first time around, so it was just natural to latch onto this one. And yeah, I quoted a lot. Bill Murray, Peter Venkman, he's always been my favorite character.
Oh,
and
wow.
He's so many great lines in this one. Even talking to Peter McNichol, that whole scene when they first get to Vigo's painting, I absolutely love when he's the photographer and he's like, all right, do crazy. Get me angry. Ooh. What does he say?
You're angry. Something like that.
Yeah. And then he's like, kill me, or dang it. What's the line? I'm going to screw it up, but destroy me. Yeah. Destroy. And then, I think Ray comes over and is like, calm down. And he's like, I've had better, but not many. It's the Vigo. That whole scene where he's, oh my gosh, that's just like gold to me. I loved it. When they go down to the tunnel of slime, and then they're pretending they're the the phone lines are over there. What's the matter with and boss, when they're the electrical workers there. Yeah, and then I don't know. There's just so much to love when they're messing with the toaster with the slime, and they're making it dance around. You worthless piece of slime, and they start going into all that stuff. I love it. I love it, and I can't put it above the original just because how much the original meant to me as a kid, and I've gone back to the theater at least twice with my son to watch it re-released. I saw it right before the Lady Ghostbusters came out, and then on the 30th anniversary, we went and watched it too in the theater. And if it comes around again, I'll probably be there. But
Oh, they'll probably do.
just
Yeah.
because I've got so much of a connection to the first one, I wouldn't put it above it, but it's right there. I love it equally as much. So, man, anybody that says it's crap or whatever, okay,
You're wrong.
um, they ruined the first. That's just nonsense to me. But
I don't understand how a sequel
I still have my cassette single of "On Our Own" by Bobby
Do
Brown.
you really? That's amazing.
It's in my little display case right next to my Prince Bat Dance.
I have this right next to my desk.
Nice.
The soundtrack. It's one of the few CDs
I never had the full soundtrack. I just had that single and wore it out.
I'm sorry, but anyone who says that song wasn't better than the Parker song is full of it.
And the music video, they kind of did the cameo thing too. And it was so great. So, I love they're in the like Times Square or whatever, and he's up on the billboard singing and showing clips of the movie. It was great.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, all right, let's keep moving. We got to keep moving here. We're up to our top three. I think I know yours. You probably know mine, but let's go ahead and reveal. What's your number 3 pick?
My number 3 pick is a movie that I have championed for a couple of years now on the internet. And it is the Fred Savage, Christian Slater, Beau Bridges classic, The Wizard. Now, this is a movie all about, they don't come out and say that he has, autism or, whatever, but they kind of say that he's, I forgot the exact terminology, but they kind of explain that he's got something like developmentally wrong with him, and he goes across the country playing video games so he can get to the Universal Studios for their Video Armageddon, this big kind of Nintendo championship tournament. And essentially this movie was really created as a advertisement for Universal Studios and Nintendo, and essentially to reveal to us that we were getting Super Mario Brothers 3 in 1990. And this movie was, not very well received, but if at the same time in 1989, if you're like my age, you're like 6 or 7, whatever, you didn't really care whether or not it was perfect cinema. Quite frankly, it's just a fun movie. It's a fun kids movie. I still love it. It's still one of my favorites, and it's very blatantly 1989 because every scene is just so incredibly 80s that it's ridiculous. There's probably a little nostalgia in it. I realize as I say that, there's a little nostalgia in it for me because I just said it's all 80s. But I do love this movie. There's a big charm about it. I do love the family aspect. And I do love the Nintendo. I love the Universal Studios. I love the corniness of it. And the best part is there's so many scenes in this movie that Christian Slater clearly doesn't know where he is, because there's a couple scenes where he's kind of just looking off in the corner and he's just like, I don't know what I signed up for. I don't know what I'm doing here. I really don't. But man. I love this movie. It's my favorite. It's up there with G.I. Joe the movie and technically Masters of the Universe, I suppose, as my favorite like childhood movie. I love this movie. Everything about it.
That's cool. I watched it. I remember renting it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember catching it on cable probably within the last like 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't had cable in a while, so I was probably like on one of the I don't know, CW or one of those networks that was showing it, and I remember getting sucked into it. And Do they actually play Super Mario 3 at the end? Okay.
Yes.
That's what I was remembering mostly about the movie is the tournament at the end and the aura of, Super Mario Brothers 3 at the time. So I didn't watch it when it first came out or even probably when Super Mario 3 hit. So I never had that connection really with the movie. And I was a Sega guy too.
There you go.
I said the S word. I'm sorry.
If it was a Sega movie, this would have been.
Yeah, probably. No, but I'm not going to poop on it at all because, again, it's just like The Burbs for me. When you watch it as a kid and it just, it's lasted with you all through the years. What can you say? So,
exactly.
It's fun. I know a lot of people that are in your corner on this movie that just love it. So,
yeah.
Good pick.
Thank you.
Number 3 for me is Back to the Future Part 2. Like I said before, I could not wait for this thing to come out. It felt like a decade between the movies because I watched it. I didn't watch the first one in the theater, I believe. It was a rental, and I remember renting it many, many times and getting to that end scene when Doc pulls up and they take off. There's not enough room to go 88 miles an hour. Where we're going, we don't need roads. That end scene in To Be Continued, those 3 little words. Oh my God, I just wanted more. They're going to the future. So fast forward to 89 when it comes out. I lived in a small town, and our theater only had 2 shows at a time. There's only 2 theaters in there. It was an old converted theater. The crazy velvet curtains and the smelly, musty smell in there. It was probably unclean by any health inspector standards, but we only had 2. So it might be the only movie I remember getting in line, the line coming out of the theater, down the street. There was one storefront right next to the Ritz, and then down an alley. And we got in line in the alley, and it was sold out before we could get there, me and my buddy.
Right.
So we had to call, I think we called our parents from a payphone and told them that the first movie was sold out, and we just hung out for like 2 hours until the 9 o'clock showing, and they let us go to the 9 o'clock showing because we had wanted to see it so bad. So the second showing that night was when we finally got to see the movie, and we just hung around in downtown for like 2 hours doing nothing. His I think it was his grandfather had a house down there, and we might have went to his place for a while, but I just remember kind of hanging out, downtown doing nothing, waiting for the next movie to come after the first one ended because we were so excited to see it. And let me tell you, man, not mind blown, mind blanked, or walking out of that theater, I'm like, what just happened? I couldn't follow, when they meet the dude in 55 with the letter and the alternate 85, and that movie just went so many directions, and to try to suck it in, if you've watched that movie for the first time and got everything that they were throwing at you, you're a freaking genius. Because I just remember being like, I got to go watch it again just to understand everything. So just out there, and it was, and it's not really a criticism, but it was just the way that the puzzle came together was so hard to follow at the end. But just the fact, you got Strickland. We talked about this. He plays like the same character in Masters Universe that he does in the alternate 85 with the shotgun. And,
oh my gosh, he really does. On the
porch. But there's just so much to love about the second one. Not just the future parts, but the alternate 85 and just how they, he sends Marty in the future, and here he is running back. I'm back from the future, and Doc faints, and you're like, oh my gosh, how? I don't understand. My mind cannot compute this.
So
Um,
much.
so it was just a total mind-blowing movie for me
Mhm.
as a 13-year-old, and I could not wait then to continue the series. And my favorites are probably in order. I like the original probably the best, and the second and the
Mhm.
third. But um, wow, it just blew my mind. And I again thinking now of how they coming up with the future and Jaws
Mhm.
Part 19 and the whole all that stuff. I mean,
Oh,
there's so many
gosh.
great little jokes like that that they added in there, and yeah, yeah, it's definitely top three for me for
So
'89.
good.
So I think we might have the same movies as our top two. We'll see.
I
Um, we'll see which way you went here. But what's your number two?
I think my number two is probably going to be your number one, and spoiler, if you know me, it's probably vice versa. My number two is also one of my all-time favorite comedies, and it's Christmas Vacation. Without a doubt, my favorite of the Christmas, or the National Lampoon movies, my favorite Chevy Chase movie, and my favorite Christmas movie. This is a movie that if I don't see during the Christmas season, you need to extend that season for another month because it is not Christmas until I see this. This movie is a movie that all these years later, 30 years later, I can still watch and laugh hysterically. I can, I mean, oh my gosh, I don't even know where to begin with this. We have so much Christmas Vacation memorabilia, and we use it as our decorations. My wife loves it. She doesn't love it as much as I do. But this is just one of those movies that's like a big comfort. And like I can watch it all year round. Um, and it just you and I are both huge Christmas people. And it makes you want Christmas it makes you want to get Christmas going even quicker. It just I don't know how to really process how much I love this movie. But for me, there's with I know so many people love Christmas Story. I know people love Home Alone is my number two as far as like Christmas movies. Like, but this is just this cannot be touched. It's just the the I still like you were talking about all the lines you use from Uncle Buck. My wife and I go back and forth. Why is the carpet wet, Todd? I don't know, Margot. We do that all the time. It doesn't matter what time of year. My love for this movie is just, gosh, I think there's only one fan bigger than me when it comes to this movie, and I'm talking to him, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
We're gonna get
But
into it right now because I did take it as my number two as well.
did you really?
I did. Listen, it took me probably 3 days to figure out number one and number two on this list.
I
And I took it number two, I think mainly because of the following the merch, the
Yes.
everything has happened later
Hmm.
than when the movie hit. And
Yes.
it's more of it grew it's more of like a cult, it was almost like a cult classic or a cult movie first
Yes.
and through the
Yes. Yes. Yes.
90s, and then it has kind of taken off in the last like I don't know 10-15 years.
Oh yeah.
um
Oh yeah.
just over the top with the merchandise and everything.
Oh my gosh.
And it's insane to think that it wasn't as well received as it is, or at
It really
least
wasn't. Yeah.
as it was back in the day.
I think that some people kind of are either in denial of that or they kind of forget that it at first it like you said it I want to say it wasn't as building steam until probably I'd probably say until like maybe late 90s. If definitely the early 2000s, especially.
Yeah.
That's around the time they started doing like the moose mugs. Oh gosh. Do you remember when they first started? Like there was an independent company.
Yeah, they like a company was created just to make like moose mugs and merch
Oh
because there was
gosh,
no
yeah.
like official I don't know who I can't remember who made the movie. It's Warner Brothers or whoever, but
Warner Brothers. Mhm.
it there was nothing. There's no like official
Absolutely not.
soundtrack release for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And it's weird that it's just become more of a fan funded
Yes.
movie over
Yes.
the years because we
Yeah.
want, who is going to go pay $300 for a Tasmanian devil mug on eBay? It's us crazy
Okay.
people from National Lampoons. I'm not doing it, but what I'm
I'm
saying
not
is,
either.
how can you get to that point of
Mhm.
a stupid Tasmanian devil mug being that coveted
And
by
it's
a
not
fan
like
base,
it's
and it has nothing to do with the. I mean, it's just
nothing.
in the movie, just so you can
He
carry it
holds it
around
for
and
like 2 seconds.
tell people to kiss my ass, kiss your ass, kiss his ass, happy Hanukkah. That's the only way you could do it, you know? Uh, it makes no sense, but 1,000% everything you said, the quotes, my God, the quotes.
Hmm.
For those of you who are not friends with me on Facebook, this happened soon after I started on Facebook. For some reason, I've never really put a picture of myself as my profile picture. And early on, probably 2 years after I joined Facebook, which has probably been at least a decade now, I've turned
Sounds right.
myself into Clark Grosswald at the turn of Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, my profile picture, and I just throw quotes out randomly as they come to me, and
Every day, just
um, I,
because.
I I I turned myself into Clark Griswold for a month and a half on Facebook every year. Um, oh my God! And I first saw this as a rental. It wasn't. I didn't
Yeah.
see it in the theater.
Yeah.
Um, I saw it as a rental. It kind of stuck with me. A couple scenes in particular, swimming pool.
Oh
But
my
there's
gosh.
there's just so much to love. I love all of the grandparents.
And
Um,
Bethany.
Aunt Bethany.
Oh my
Oh my gosh, there's just
gosh.
so much. I can pretty much, if you're a fan of the movie, you can watch it with me. If you're not a fan of the movie, you cannot watch it with me because I just quote it.
Oh
I
gosh,
will
so do
quote
I.
the entire movie as I'm watching it, and I'm like you. I'm still laughing at the craziness.
I I
Tis the
gotta
season
tell
to
you,
be merry. Well, that's my name. No.
is
I,
Leslie still in the Navy?
I mean, there's just oh my gosh. If it's definitely transcended Christmas because they start showing it in
Yep.
October before Halloween, and that's even a little bit early for me because I like to
I get
get it. I like to it to be the first one that I watch if I can because
yes.
I have to wait until that calendar turns to Black Friday before I
Mhm.
start watching Christmas. I try to keep that a tradition at least. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't. But that movie
Sure.
being played in October on cable just tells you so much about it
Oh my
that
gosh.
people just want to watch it. They don't care what time of year it is. They don't care if it's in the middle of Halloween season. Give me Christmas Vacation.
Exactly. Yes, we want that. Um, I gotta tell you two things. First off, I have two really, and I'll try to speed through them. Back in 2002, we actually got a squirrel stuck in our chimney in our basement. And I kid you, there are photos of me trying to get it out with a like a broom, and my brother got a bunch of welding gear for me to get like chase after. And it took us 2.5 hours to get the squirrel out of our basement. And then afterwards, my mom says, "This is like in Christmas Vacation. This is a great way to start off our Christmas season." I'm like, "Are you serious, Mom? Really?"
Did it make a
And
funny squeaky sound?
we my wife's parents actually gave us a little squeaky squirrel to put in our tree every year, and we still do it.
Nice. Nice.
I got to tell you, I started watching this movie Thanksgiving night. I started doing that tradition around 2003. And that's a tradition I have to have. I didn't do it last year, and that's okay. It didn't ruin my Thanksgiving, didn't ruin my Christmas. That's okay. But like that is a tradition that like I just hold dear. Like that right after Thanksgiving dinner, it's Christmas time. I'm putting on Christmas Vacation. We're putting up the tree if it's not up already, and we're watching it. And the funny thing is, the first Thanksgiving I came up, I used to be in a long distance relationship with my now wife. The first Thanksgiving I came up here, we're staying at my sister-in-law. We're staying at her house, my now sister-in-law, and it's I think the night after Thanksgiving. And she says to me, Chad, do you like Christmas Vacation? And I'm like, come on, seriously? And my wife still she dreads the pool scene because when Eddie came out on the diving board, I laughed so hard I almost just passed out. And she's just like, what did I get myself into here? This movie just,
Yeah.
it's so great.
I finally got myself a moose mug this year. The first time I've got a moose mug. Yeah,
Yes.
I had a 40% off coupon at Bed Bath Beyond, and it came home with me that night.
We found 2 on clearance at Target. Actually, probably I'd probably say a week after Christmas, which that never happens.
Never happens.
But we found 2, and we have 2 in our cupboard right next to the Mr. Narwhal from Elf. And I got to tell you, if you're like a big ice cream sundae fan and you put ice cream sundae in those moose mugs,
perfect.
Even better. Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could like again, we could do a whole podcast on it, but
I think we may have to this year.
Let's put a cap on this as far as our list goes and announce what I think is our mutual number 1.
I think it will.
I'm kind of hinted at it with my T-shirt tonight. If you can,
I did notice the T-shirt.
It's Batman.
It is Batman, and I'm grabbing a visual aid to kind of show you 2 great things that I have in my collection. First off, I have the official Joker makeup kit from 1989.
Nice.
This has not been opened, but trust me, it's tempting.
Nice.
And of course, the Batman the cereal.
Nice. Oh my gosh, and it's wrapped with the figure.
Yup, the bank. And actually, there's a tear here, and it's making me cry. It's not the most rare cereal in the world, but it's just so beautiful. I love the box. Okay, let's talk about this movie. How are we gonna really dive into this movie?
I don't know. I was trying to remember. I obviously saw it in the theater, but I didn't have a specific memory of going to see it in the theater. Uh-huh. The memories that I have, like I said, I bought the Bat Dance single, sure. And I went to Boy Scout camp that year, and I snuck in my tent a battery-operated single speaker boombox with a cassette player just to listen to that. We are camping, and I brought that, and my scoutmaster like confiscated it on the first day. I was like, oh, my whole week is ruined here at camp because I can't listen to Prince. That is a very specific memory I have.
That is a very specific.
I didn't get into the animated series right away.
Really?
But the I didn't watch it until. I didn't watch the whole thing until like 2 years ago when it came to Amazon, and I just went through the whole series. But the lasting impact of the score, the soundtrack, the Danny Elfman theme, and how it carried into the animated series, and that's just all of the commercials, even like the cereal commercials had it in it.
Batman, the cereal.
I mean, that soundtrack is just so great.
It
That was
really
another
is.
thing that just kind of boosted this to the top for me, was the score and the Prince soundtrack. Because there's a lot more songs I didn't really get into until later on that soundtrack that are in the movie, obviously, but oh, such a great album. Um, so many ulterior things surrounding that movie, other than just the film itself, which was just
Oh
awesome.
my gosh.
Um, that just impacted the whole like pop culture. It was pop culture for that whole summer and beyond.
Absolutely.
Do you have a specific memory seeing it in the theater?
I didn't get to see it in the theater.
Mhm.
At that time, my my parents were a little on. They weren't sure whether or not that they wanted to let me see this movie so early, so they were actually going to see it themselves. And I that was a movie that I was. I mean, obviously, I wanted to see it because it's Batman, and my dad was a huge Batman fan. So he may have seen it in the theater. I don't know, but I know when the movie came to VHS, we are
Yeah.
all of us saw it. I don't remember if it's before or after my dad died, but I would have loved to have seen that in the theater with him. Um, I gotta tell you, when I say that, Jason, this is my favorite movie of all time. But it's not just because of the movie. It's because this movie was such a huge event of my life, of everybody's life. It everything became Batman. Everything had a bat logo. I mean, this is when you think of a blockbuster, you think of Batman 89, the summer of Batman, the summer
Yeah.
of 89. What and it even lasted for
Yeah. It was in the theater forever.
couple years. I mean,
Yeah.
the impact that Batman had. Then we had all these, superhero movies. We had Dick Tracy. We had Rocketeer. We had um, so many,
Yeah.
kind of trying to, cash in on that Batman craze, but nothing touched it. I mean,
Yeah. It was by far the most successful, superhero thing.
oh my gosh,
You think of like the
absolutely.
Hulk, TV series in the
Yeah,
70s, you
yeah.
know, the original Superman movies, like one and two, somewhat three, had a pretty big impact on me.
Hmm.
The 60s Batman series and reruns, I watched a ton.
Yeah.
So this is why I never got into comic books as a kid. So this is why like DC has uh, is I've been a fan of DC more than anything else, is because those things right there, the Superman movies and then the Batman series in the 60s rerun on WPIX every
Hmm.
afternoon from when I came home from school.
Oh wow.
Those had a really lasting impact. And back then as a kid, you don't care who they're going to cast. It's Batman. You're going for the character. You're not the you know
Right.
I find that everything leading up to there, the criticism of who they chose for the actor and everything,
Mhm.
and how that came about. That's really interesting to me. But you did not care when you're
No.
13 years old in 1989 going to see Batman, and it just really launched Batman as my favorite superhero character,
Mhm.
even more so than the 60s series did. So yeah, that kind of impact, just beyond the commercial value of it and how
Mhm.
much it made and all the merchandise and all that, man, it just there's a huge post right there in 1989 in superhero history. It seems
They
like.
I mean, my gosh, and you were talking about the 60s show. I mean, I think to this day, kids are going to be watching that 60s series, and a lot of them are probably going to be, that's. I mean, Batman's more widely available now, but I have to imagine somewhere that's probably someone's gateway into Batman.
Hmm.
Um, but this was not the 60s by any
But no,
means.
no, it was like a dose of reality. Like it was real.
Yeah.
Because you think of that show and how cheesy it is, and just yeah, he still had the utility belt
Yeah.
and the Batmobile and all that, but there's machine guns on the
Oh my
Batmobile.
gosh. The
um,
the Batmobile alone just looked incredible and blew that other one from the 60s out of the water. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Still my favorite Batmobile. Um, and I mean, the Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne was fantastic. And there's not a lot of people that get Bruce Wayne and Batman right. Like, you might have someone who gets Bruce Wayne right and Batman wrong, or vice versa. But he had it right. He made Batman intimidating. He made Bruce Wayne very unassuming, and to others. It was so
yeah,
good. And Jack Nicholson is the Joker to this day. I don't care what people say. He is the greatest Joker I've ever seen in my entire life.
yeah,
I love this movie. Like,
yeah.
I have seen this movie well over 100 times in my lifetime. And here, hold on real quick, because I got to show you this in the background. Do you see that?
I do.
So that's actually a promo from a video store. My
Oh,
wife got
nice.
that for me for our 5th anniversary, I believe. But this is my favorite movie, and
Yeah.
the logo. Do you remember the first time you saw that logo?
Yeah, well, that was just the poster. The
Oh my
poster,
gosh!
a lot of the uh just advertisements in newspapers and magazines was just
Mhm.
the logo. That's all you needed.
That's all you needed.
That's
You
all
didn't
you
need
needed.
anyone's faces. All it said was Nicholson, Keaton, Batman. And it got people's imaginations. I don't think if you weren't around back then, it's kind of hard to equate what would be on that level these days. Like I worked at a movie theater last year before I moved on to another job, and I got to tell you, as popular as like an Infinity War was, or as popular as a Deadpool, or we were expecting Solo to be a much bigger deal. It's so hard to explain to those who didn't live in that time how huge this was. And this, like I said, it was not a movie. This was an event. This
Yeah.
was like a milestone in comic books, uh, movies in general.
Yeah.
Like I just there's maybe there's a few things in the movie I'd change, like the Wayne Manor party, but it for the most part, I will always love this movie. Like,
Yeah.
and I thought Ben Affleck did great as Batman. Looking back, I'm not as big on Christian Bale as Batman. I thought George Clooney was terrible. I thought Val Kilmer was good as Bruce Wayne and Batman, but nobody's coming close to Michael Keaton for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I back you up on those choices.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it got crazy, with Batman and Robin. I like Batman Forever. I remember that being
I
almost
like
the
that too as a
same
kid. Yeah.
event in my high school years. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's just set the precedent that's been topped maybe a couple times, like you said, with some of the Avengers stuff. The first
Hmm.
Avengers probably
Maybe. Yeah.
was probably an equal event, but
Yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah, it is so hard to describe without being there
Yeah.
and knowing the impact and people going to the movie theater every weekend that
Oh my
summer.
gosh.
You know, it was in the
I'll
theater forever.
I'll tell you, I went. Here's how big Batman was and how big its impact was. When Batman Returns came out, I went to the theater, packed house. I think it was opening weekend. I don't think it was opening day. It may have even been a week later. I remember being in the theater. It was packed. People were sitting in the aisles because they wanted to see how they were going to follow this up. You're not going to get that now. I mean, for many reasons, but people were sitting in the aisle. They were probably sneaking in. But
Yeah.
to see this movie and to see how they were going to top themselves, Batman 89 set such a high standard for movies in general.
Yeah.
And I think that the one movie that comes to mind in terms of hype is Star Wars Episode 1, which, again, if you weren't around for that, which we're celebrating 20 years this year, I think that that's probably the closest we have in like maybe the last 30 years since Batman. But
Yeah.
even then, I just, nothing comes close to Batman for me. Nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely up there on my all-time favorites as well. And wow. Yeah. What an apex to 89. I mean, it's just, you think about the box office numbers we just read earlier. It beat the number 2 movie by 50 million. In a 250 million, it made 250, but the next one didn't even break 200. Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was just so much on another level, on so many levels. If that even makes sense. All right, well, let's put a cap on this show. We've gone with this extended edition. This has been great, man. Gosh, so many great movies. Let's just go through our honorable mention list kind of quick if we can.
Sure. I literally just have really one honorable mention. Because like I said, this was hard to pick, but only one. I had Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Was the one that I had the hardest time figuring out, and in fact, it lost out to 976 Evil. But it wasn't not an easy choice. I loved Bill and Ted as a kid. I believe it or not, I actually liked the sequel more. I loved the toys. I thought the cartoon was, okay. I had the cereal. The cereal was terrible. But, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is such a fun movie. That to this day I still find myself, if I'm eating ice cream, I say Ziggy Piggy, Ziggy Piggy, Ziggy Piggy.
Yeah.
So
and
that's my one.
We've got Circle K gas stations around, so how can you not,
yes.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K every time you fill up. I mean, it's a great one. It was on my honorable mentions list, definitely. It was. Sure. I don't remember seeing it in the theater. It was more of a rental in the 90s.
Yes, that was the same with me too.
Saw many times. So that you don't have any more on your honorable mentions?
Not really. I mean, Uncle Buck would have been, but I mean, Bill and Ted was the main one.
Okay, I'm gonna zip through these. Most of these were like rental standards in the 90s for me. Weekend at Bernie's. I almost put that in my top 10. I loved that movie so much. And it was just one of those things. I don't know how, it's just weird and it's fun at the same time. A little morbid, but I don't know what it is. Very 80s, very, I don't know. I love Weekend at Bernie's. That's a podcast for another day.
Oh, I'm sure.
I had Karate Kid 3 there. Like I said, saw it in the theater. Definitely above number 2. One that I watched that I remember renting many, many times, and I still need to go back and revisit it because it's been a while, but absolutely loved, is a movie called Three Fugitives with Martin Short and Nick Nolte. And it's about this guy and his little daughter. He tries to rob a bank because he's out of money. And Nick Nolte is this dude just released from jail, and he happens to be at the bank. And Martin Short takes him hostage, and nobody can believe that he's in on it. James Earl Jones plays the police chief. And it's just this movie of them trying to avoid the cops and get their lives straightened out. Nolte gets shot in the leg and they have nowhere to go but this veterinarian. Oh my God. It's just, I remember just watching and loving that movie in the early 90s and renting it over and over. Have you seen it?
Never heard of it.
Oh my gosh, it is
I'm writing
great.
it down.
I've got to revisit it soon. I might just go out and buy it like on Google Play or something. Love The Three Fugitives. Major League, we talked about it briefly. One of the first rated R movies. So many great lines in that movie.
Up your butt, Joe Boo. Isn't that what he says?
Yes. Hey bartender, I think Jobu needs a refill. Gets hit with the bat. Yeah. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I remember watching that one in the theater, that being a pretty big deal. Everybody loves the shrinking aspect. I don't know what it is about shrinking stuff, but I could make a movie tomorrow about, I don't know, a sneaker shrinking and an ant putting it on, and people would go and watching it.
Absolutely.
Go watch it.
That
I don't know what it is.
For me and my family too, and to the point that was such a favorite of so many people that for how long did Disney have that in as a attraction?
Yes.
At Disney World
at Epcot. It was at Epcot, and I remember we actually went to Disney on a honeymoon.
It was MGM Studios.
I'm thinking actually it was Epcot because we went there.
Right. They had a attraction with like a movie.
It was a 4D theater. Yes.
Yes, and then they also had like the little playground with all like they had the Cheerio and the ant and the shoe.
Yeah.
So they had two things, and that was running for a long
time. Yeah, very very long time. I was mad when they've got rid of a lot of stuff there at Disney and Universal. But anyway, yes, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Bill and Ted we mentioned, Turner and Hooch. I rented that one so many times. Tom Hanks, where he's the cop and messing with the junkyard dog, that he kind of inherits, and it almost becoming his partner to solve a murder, mystery. The Dream Team. Have you seen The Dream Team with Michael Keaton?
That movie.
I remember watching that one a lot. That one's just bizarre and crazy, and Michael Keaton at his crazy. He's another level of crazy beyond Let's Get Nuts and Batman in that one. He's just and the dad from Everybody Loves Raymond, Peter
Boyle.
Peter Boyle.
Yep. Christopher
He's in
Lloyd
that.
And
Christopher Lloyd is in that. It's so
founder from Animal House.
Very very underrated. Very underrated comedy, The Dream Team.
That's one of Michael Keaton's most Michael Keaton performances.
Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. Just a few more that I remember watching. We still watch Prancer every year. I have to watch that one during the Christmas time with Mr. Mustache. God bless, what is his name? Sam Elliott.
Okay.
That's a great Christmas movie. One of my wife's favorites. We watch that every year. I do remember watching Look Who's Talking, renting that one quite a bit. Have not watched it probably since the 90s and have really no desire to. But for what it's worth, it was a hit back in the day.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Another very underrated John Candy movie, Who's Harry Crumb? I remember renting that one. And there's a specific scene that I won't go into on this podcast that intrigued me as a teenage boy. It's very underrated. It's not going to ever get to the level of a Uncle Buck and some of those movies, The Great Outdoors for me, but it's still got some funny parts in it, and it's John Candy. Come on. Speaking of Fred Savage, how about Little Monsters? I remember watching that one quite a bit as a rental. Howie Mandel, they go under the bed, and there's that whole monster realm. Been years since I watched that.
I didn't actually see that until a couple years ago, and I was just like, again, it was like you with the Burbs. I feel like I saw it way too late. In life to truly appreciate it.
Yeah.
But I will say this: a lot of people have said and made speculation that was essentially the closest to a My Pet Monster theatrical movie that we could get, and I'm like, okay, I can appreciate that, I guess.
It kind of creeped me out. I remember after watching it and not wanting to go near or underneath my bed, just
Fair.
because of that movie.
Mhm.
And it, to me, again, I haven't watched it in years, but it seems more Monsters Inc. to me
Yes.
than
Yeah.
anything. So I need to
Yeah.
go back and revisit it from that perspective and see if it really was like the Monsters Inc. before that ever came along. But
Oh yeah. I can totally see that.
that kind of rounds out my honorable mentions. There's a few more on there. I'm just gonna we'll leave on there, and for the sake of time, we've definitely extended this episode quite a bit. But oh my gosh, man, this was so much fun. So many
Oh yeah.
great films in '89.
Tremendous.
Thank you so much, man, for coming on.
Hey, thank you. It was a real pleasure.
And we'll continue the trend. I'm looking forward. We can come up with some other things this year to discuss, Chad. Maybe encompassing the whole decade like we've done before with the toy lines and
Oh
some other
yes.
things. So we don't have to wait another year to do movies again. But
Sure.
it's so much fun. I knew this year we are going to have a lot that kind of mirrored. Was kind of surprised we did have 2 and 1 exactly the same, but
That
for
was
the
a
most
big
part,
surprise.
still
Yeah.
out of a list of 10, we still had some ones in there that didn't even make honorable mentions on the
Sure.
others list.
Oh yeah.
So I just love our choices and how they kind of fill in the gaps from what we've actually seen and loved. So anyway, appreciate you coming on, man, and we appreciate everybody tuning in. Please go subscribe to us, and you can find Chad on Twitter at Horror Movie BBQ, horrormoviebbq.com. Go follow him there. Check out his blog. And I'm at RD80s on Twitter. Send us your list, man. If you've got if '89 was one of those years like it was for us, send us your top 10. We'd love to
Oh yeah.
see that, tag us in that, and kind of keep the conversation going with Rankum. But for Chad, this is Jason. Thanks so much for listening, and we will see you next time on Rankum. All right.
All right. That was great, dude. I love
And
it.
I could have gone on more on
Oh
many more of
gosh.
those movies, but
Oh, so could I.
oh, it's such a great year,
It
and
really is.
this has been great, man.
Oh man. Hey man, definitely appreciate you letting me hop on.
Yeah, man. I know it's late for you, so I'll let you go, and we'll catch you online or on text.
Yeah. All right, you got it, man.
All right. Take care, Chad.
All right. Always good talking to you, brother. Stay tight.
All right. Bye.
Bye.